8 hours prior to the pivotal moment, Representative Ilhan Omar had been seated within the confines of her congressional suite in the Longworth House office building, meticulously reviewing the subpoena that had been delivered by a courier the previous afternoon. It was a formal summons to testify before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence regarding a classified national security matter. The document was sparse, devoid of details or indications of the specific line of inquiry, listing only a time of 2:00 p.m. and a location within SCIF B 417 in the Capitol basement. Her chief of staff, Ahmed Hassan, stood nearby, his expression etched with palpable concern as he noted that they refused to divulge any specifics, adding that Turner's office insisted the matter was classified and that she would be briefed upon her arrival. This sensation is distinct from previous encounters, Omar noted, waving a hand dismissively, though she internally felt a sudden flutter of unease. It is likely merely further partisan harassment. They have been investigating me for years regarding the marriage conspiracy theories, the campaign finance allegations, and the Somalia narratives, yet they never uncover anything. Because there is truly nothing to be found. This is simply more of the same theater, she asserted. But Ahmed pressed further, noting that a classified session was unusual and emphasizing that they had explicitly stated she could not bring legal counsel into the SCIF. That is standard protocol for classified hearings. I have entered SCIFs dozens of times for Foreign Affairs Committee briefings, and it is perfectly fine, she replied, finding reason to maintain her confidence, as she had successfully weathered every challenge previously hurled at her direction. When the former president had tweeted that she should return to Somalia, her support had actually increased. When political opponents accused her of anti-Semitism for criticizing Israel, she had transformed the accusation into a rallying cry regarding Islamophobia. When conservative media outlets obsessed over her immigration history and her first marriage, she had labeled the inquiries as racist conspiracy theories. Every attack had seemingly made her more popular with her base, more famous on a national stage, and more powerful within the Democratic Party structure. The squad, comprising herself, AOC, Rashida, and Ayanna Pressley, had become some of the most influential voices in Congress. While Nancy Pelosi may have held the gavel as Speaker, it was the squad that effectively drove the narrative. Omar had learned that adopting the posture of the victim was effective. Call everything Islamophobia, label everything racism, and the media would defend you while progressive activists rallied around you, forcing opponents to retreat lest they be branded as bigots. It had worked effectively for 6 years. So she reasoned, why would today be any different? What Omar did not know, and could not have possibly known, was that for the past 18 months, the FBI had been conducting a Level 1 counterintelligence investigation, not a political probe, nor harassment, but a genuine espionage investigation triggered by foreign intelligence services who had flagged her communications as suspicious. Dan Bongino possessed the evidence to demonstrate she had been operating as a foreign agent. That same morning, 3,000 miles away at FBI headquarters in Quantico, Virginia, Bongino sat in a secure conference room reviewing the final intelligence package with his counterintelligence team. The walls were covered with timelines, photographs, and transcripts, compressing 18 months of investigation into undeniable visual evidence. He was 51 years old, built like a man who still frequented the gym daily despite his time behind a desk, with short, dark hair graying at the temples and the remnants of a New York accent that had never quite disappeared despite his years in D.C. He had spent his 20s as an NYPD officer working Brooklyn's 75th Precinct, one of the city's most dangerous areas, followed by 12 years in the Secret Service, including a stint on the Presidential Protective Detail. Now serving as the deputy director of the FBI, he ran operations while Director Christopher Wray handled the political and administrative aspects. Bongino loved the operational role-building cases, running investigations, and taking down hostile actors. And this case, involving a sitting member of Congress potentially committing espionage, was the most significant of his career. Lead investigator Special Agent Maria Santos stood at a whiteboard covered in color-coded timelines. She was a 43-year-old former CIA counterintelligence officer who had moved to the FBI 5 years prior. She had run operations against Russian, Chinese, and Iranian intelligence. Yet this case was different. An American, a member of Congress, potentially working for multiple foreign services. "Let me walk you through the full package one more time," Santos said, clicking through slides on a secure monitor. The investigation began in April 2024 when Israeli intelligence, Mossad, contacted us with intercepts they had obtained while monitoring Khalid al-Mansour, a Qatar-based operative with documented ties to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood, she explained, pulling up photos of al-Mansour, a middle-aged man in traditional dress. Al-Mansour is on multiple watch lists, and the Israelis were tracking his communications for terrorism financing when Omar's name kept appearing. They could not monitor her directly, as she is a U.S. person, but they could see al-Mansour's side of the conversations, so they passed the intelligence to us. Bongino studied the intercepts, noting that this provided the predicate for a FISA warrant. "Exactly," Santos confirmed. "We took the Israeli intelligence, verified al-Mansour's identity and connections, confirmed he was a legitimate foreign intelligence target, and then applied to the FISA court for a warrant to monitor Omar's communications as they related to foreign intelligence activities." Special Agent Tom Chen, sitting at the table reviewing documents, spoke up. He was former CIA, having spent 15 years running operations in the Middle East before joining FBI counterintelligence. "The FISA application was solid. We demonstrated to the court that Omar was in regular contact with a known foreign operative, that classified information was appearing in foreign media immediately following her briefings, and that there were financial anomalies with unexplained money flowing to family members. Judge Hogan reviewed it personally. He is not a rubber stamp, and he approved it because the evidence was substantial." Santos continued, "The warrant was approved on April 12, 2024, and we have been monitoring for 18 months. Phone calls, emails, and encrypted messaging apps when we could break them. We only monitored communications with foreign targets. We were not surveilling her domestic political activities," she clarified, pulling up statistics showing 47 intercepted communications over 18 months. These included phone calls with al-Mansour in Qatar, encrypted messages with Turkish intelligence contacts, emails with Iranian journalists who were actually intelligence officers, and meetings during foreign travel that she failed to disclose. Bongino flipped through the transcripts, reading Omar's voice over and over as she discussed classified information, coordinated with foreign operatives, and expressed her genuine views about America. Views very different from what she stated publicly. "Give me the highlights," Bongino requested. "The absolute smoking guns." Chen pulled up a list. Number 1. The Jihad by Other Means Call. On March 14, 2025. She explicitly tells al-Mansour that she is not in Congress to serve America, but rather to do damage from the inside, calling it jihad by other means. Her words cannot be misinterpreted. Number 2. The Yemen leak in April 2025. She attends a classified briefing on a counter-terrorism operation, and 2 days later, she calls al-Mansour and describes the operation in detail. 3 days after that, Al Jazeera runs a story that compromises the entire operation, destroying 3 years of intelligence work. Number 3. The Israeli intelligence leak in May 2025. She leaks information about Israeli operations to Qatar, resulting in 2 Israeli intelligence officers being arrested in Europe, one of whom is killed in custody. She got someone killed. Number 4. The payments. Her brother's consulting company has received $680,000 in wire transfers from Qatar and Turkey over 2 years, and the transfers always arrive right after she meets with intelligence contacts, indicating payment for services rendered. Number 5. The undisclosed meetings. 8 foreign trips, where she met with intelligence operatives and did not report it as required, and we have surveillance photos from foreign services showing her in known intelligence facilities. Bongino closed his binder, stating firmly, "This is espionage, clear-cut. She has been operating as a foreign agent while serving in Congress." The question remained on how to present this to ensure she could not maneuver her way out. Santos had the answer. We go chronological. Start with the FISA warrant to show it is legitimate and not political persecution. Then play the intercepts to let her voice convict her. Then show the pattern of leaks, classified briefing, followed by contact with foreign operatives, followed by appearance in media, then the money, then the photos of undisclosed meetings, building it brick by brick until it is undeniable. And when she screams Islamophobia? Bongino asked. We stick to facts, Chen replied. We never mention her religion. We focus entirely on actions. She contacted foreign intelligence operatives. She leaked classified information. She received foreign payments. Those are facts that have nothing to do with Islam. Bongino reviewed his notes, emphasizing that tone was critical. I am not going in there to attack her. I am presenting evidence of criminal activity, clinical and professional, like I am briefing a case to the director. Let the evidence speak for itself. The team went through the presentation one more time, organizing the order of evidence, deciding which recordings to play and which documents to show, anticipating her defenses and having counter-evidence ready. At noon, Bongino stood up and said, All right, let's go show Congress what one of their members has been doing. At 1:45 p.m., Ilhan Omar's car pulled up to the Capitol, and she walked through security with her chief of staff beside her. They made their way to the basement level, down corridors that became progressively more secure with card readers and guards, finally arriving at a heavy vault door marked Skiff B-417, authorized personnel only. A security officer checked her ID against a list, stating, You are cleared, Congresswoman, but your staff needs to stay outside. Ahmed looked worried and asked, Are you sure you don't want us to? But Omar interrupted with more confidence than she felt, saying, I'll be fine. It's just more Republican games. She entered the skiff, and the heavy door closed behind her with a solid thud. The room was windowless, with walls of boring beige and acoustic tiles on the ceiling. A long conference table dominated the space, and committee members were already seated. At the far end, she saw him Dan Bongino, recognizing him from his days doing conservative commentary before joining the FBI. Now he was deputy director, sitting there with 2 massive binders that had red classified markings on the covers. Something cold settled in her stomach. This wasn't a Republican congressman grandstanding. This was the FBI, and they had brought evidence. Chairman Turner called the session to order at exactly 2 p.m., stating, This is a classified session of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Everything discussed here is classified. Top secret, sensitive, compartmented information. He warned that recording devices were prohibited except for official stenography, and that unauthorized disclosure was a federal crime punishable by up to 10 years imprisonment. He looked directly at Omar and said, Congresswoman, You are here to answer questions regarding a counterintelligence investigation. You have the right to have counsel present, but counsel must have appropriate security clearances. Do you have cleared counsel? Well, no, Omar replied, noting her lawyers were expensive D.C. attorneys who did not have TS/SCI clearances. Then you may proceed without counsel, or we can delay this hearing while your attorneys obtain clearances, which typically takes 6 to 8 weeks, Turner offered. Omar straightened and said, I'll proceed. I have nothing to hide. Turner nodded and announced, Deputy Director Bongino has been leading an FBI counterintelligence investigation for the past 18 months. This committee was briefed yesterday on the preliminary findings, and we are now receiving a full classified briefing and taking your testimony on the record. Deputy Director Bongino stood, walked to the witness table opposite Omar, and he didn't look angry or aggressive. He looked like a cop about to present evidence at trial, professional, methodical, and certain. Congresswoman Omar, he began, his voice carrying the authority of 2 decades in law enforcement. For 18 months, the FBI has been conducting a Level 1 counterintelligence investigation into your contacts with foreign intelligence operatives and your handling of classified information. He explained that this investigation was authorized by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court after receiving intelligence from Foreign Liaison Services indicating potential compromise. He opened his first binder and stated, I am going to present evidence that you have been in regular contact with foreign intelligence operatives from at least 3 countries, that you have leaked classified information to foreign governments and media on at least 6 documented occasions, causing grave damage to national security, that you have received payments from foreign governments through your family members totaling approximately $680,000, and that you have made explicit statements indicating you view your congressional position as a means to undermine American interests from within. Omar started to protest, but Turner cut her off, saying, You will have an opportunity to respond, Congresswoman. Let the Deputy Director present his findings. Bongino continued, calm and relentless. Let's begin with how this investigation started, and with the legal basis for surveillance of a sitting member of Congress. Bongino pulled out the first section of documents and stated, Before I present any intercepted communications or surveillance findings, I want to establish that this investigation is legally sound. This is not political persecution. This is a valid counterintelligence operation authorized by federal judges based on substantial evidence. He slid copies of a document to each committee member, identifying it as the FISA warrant application submitted to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court on April 8, 2024, which was reviewed and approved by Judge Thomas Hogan on April 12. The document was partially redacted to protect sources and methods, but the key findings were clear. The application detailed that in March 2024, Israeli intelligence contacted the FBI, stating they had been monitoring Khaled al-Mansour, a Qatar-based operative with documented ties to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood, who was on multiple terrorism watch lists. While monitoring his communications for terrorism financing purposes, the Israelis intercepted multiple conversations where he discussed our source in Congress and referenced information that appeared to be classified. Bongino showed photos of al-Mansour and explained that while the Israelis couldn't identify the source from their intercepts, as al-Mansour was careful, they noticed that after each conversation about the congressional source, specific classified information would appear in Al Jazeera or other Middle Eastern media within days. They traced the pattern and determined the source had to be someone on the House Foreign Affairs Committee or Intelligence Committee. Bongino explained, pulling up a timeline, the Israelis shared their intercepts as part of routine intelligence sharing with a close ally. The FBI verified al-Mansour's identity, confirmed his connections, and confirmed he was a legitimate foreign intelligence target. They then cross-referenced the leaked information with congressional schedules to narrow down who had access to that specific classified intel, identifying 3 members of Congress, Congresswoman Omar, Congressman Gregory Meeks, and Congressman Brad Sherman. We investigated all 3. Financial records showed that Congresswoman Omar's brother had received large, unexplained wire transfers from Qatar. Travel records showed she had made multiple trips to Qatar and Turkey that included meetings she didn't report, and phone records showed repeated calls to numbers in Qatar linked to intelligence services, Bongino stated, looking up. That gave us probable cause. We presented all of this to Judge Hogan, who is known for being meticulous about civil liberties, and he reviewed the application personally, read every page, asked detailed questions, and approved the warrant because the evidence was substantial. He showed the approval order, clarifying that the warrant authorized surveillance of Congresswoman Omar's communications with foreign intelligence targets, not her domestic political activities or conversations with constituents. Representative Himes, the ranking Democrat, spoke up. Deputy Director, I want to be clear for the record. This warrant was approved by a federal judge appointed by President Obama. This wasn't some partisan fishing expedition, correct? Bongino confirmed. Judge Hogan is widely respected, and the standard for a FISA warrant is high. Probable cause that the target is an agent of a foreign power. We met that standard. Omar tried to speak, but her voice came out weak. You spied on a sitting member of Congress based on information from Israel. Bongino corrected her immediately. We investigated a U.S. person who was in contact with foreign intelligence operatives and potentially compromising national security. The fact that you are a member of Congress does not give you immunity from counterintelligence investigation. If anything, it makes it more imperative, as you have access to classified information that could cause grave damage in the wrong hands. He paused and added, and the investigation proved the warrant was justified. Let me show you what we found. Bongino opened the second section of his binder. Over 18 months of surveillance, we intercepted 47 communications between Congresswoman Omar and various foreign intelligence operatives or individuals with known ties to hostile intelligence services. Let me play some of the most significant ones. He looked at Omar and said, I'm going to start with the one I mentioned at the beginning. March 14th, 2025. You called Khalid al-Mansour in Qatar. The call lasted 14 minutes, and Bongino pressed play on the secure audio system. The recording was crystal clear, a digital intercept professionally recorded by NSA equipment. Omar's voice filled the room, speaking in English with her distinctive Somali-influenced accent. Khaled, you know why I ran for Congress. Not to serve America, to serve our cause. This is jihad by other means. I can do more damage from inside than anyone could from outside. The Americans are so arrogant, they don't even see it. They put me on the Foreign Affairs Committee. They give me classified briefings. They think I'm here to represent my constituents. I'm here to represent our interests. Then al-Mansour's voice, speaking English with an Arabic accent, asked, and the information about the operation in Yemen that you mentioned? Omar replied, I'll send it through the journalist contact, like you said. Use the Al Jazeera connection. They can run it without sourcing me. I'll describe it as coming from U.S. officials or sources familiar with the matter. Nobody will trace it back to me. Al-Mansour warned, this will compromise their operation. Omar responded, that's the point. The operation targets our brothers. If I can warn them, save their lives, that's what I'm here to do. The Americans see me as a representative. I see myself as a soldier. Bongino stopped the playback, and the silence in the room was crushing. Several committee members looked physically ill. Representative Himes had his head in his hands, and Chairman Turner's voice was tight with anger as he asked, "Did we all just hear what I think we heard?" "Yes," Bongino said simply, Representative Omar explicitly stating that she is not in Congress to serve the United States, that she views her position as jihad by other means, that she is here to do damage from inside and discussing leaking classified information about a U.S. counterterrorism operation specifically to compromise it. He looked at Omar and asked, "Do you dispute that is your voice?" Omar's face had gone gray. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Bongino didn't wait for an answer. "Let me play another one. April 2nd, 2025. Another call to Al-Mansour." The audio played, "Omar, I was in the briefing yesterday. They gave details on the Yemen operation locations, timing, target list. I have it all. I'll send you a summary through secure messaging. Make sure your Al Jazeera contact runs it within 72 hours. If it takes longer, the operation might be completed before we can warn anyone." Al-Mansour, "You're certain this information is accurate?" Omar, "It came directly from NSA and CIA. The briefing was very detailed. They're planning drone strikes and a raid. If your people can get word to the targets, they can evacuate or prepare defenses." Al-Mansour, "Sister Ilhan, you're doing Allah's work. The American empire thinks it can murder Muslims anywhere in the world, but you're saving lives." Omar, "That's what I tell myself when I'm sitting in those briefings, listening to them plan death. I think I can stop this. I can warn our people, and that makes it bearable." Bongino stopped the tape again. "That is conspiracy to compromise a classified U.S. military operation. She received classified information in an official briefing and immediately conspired with a foreign operative to leak it specifically to compromise the operation." He pulled up a timeline. April 1st, classified briefing on Operation Sandstorm. April 2nd, this phone call. April 5th, Al Jazeera runs a detailed article. April 7th, the operation is compromised as targets evacuate. 3 years of intelligence work and millions of dollars wasted, he noted. He played more excerpts. June 18th, 2025, Omar boasting that everything they tell me I can share with our network. August 3rd, 2025, Omar describing U.S. troop movements in Syria to a Turkish contact. September 10th, 2025, Omar leaking a list of Iranian companies targeted for sanctions to an Iranian intelligence officer. "We have 47 communications like this, all showing the same pattern. She receives classified information in official briefings, then immediately contacts foreign operatives to share that information, always undermining U.S. interests," Bongino summarized. He looked at each committee member and said, "This isn't a misunderstanding or a policy difference. This is espionage." A sitting member of Congress actively working against the United States on behalf of foreign governments and terrorist-linked organizations. Representative Michael McCall asked how many intercepts involved classified information. 34 of the 47. Bongino replied, adding that explicitly, at least a dozen times, she expressed anti-American sentiment. Bongino moved to the next section to demonstrate the damage. 6 documented cases where classified information Omar received appeared in foreign media within days, causing substantial harm. He detailed Leak 1, Operation Sandstorm, costing $47 million and allowing al-Qaeda operatives to escape. He then detailed Leak 2, Israeli intelligence operations, where Omar leaked information about an Israeli spy network in Europe to Qatar, resulting in 2 Mossad officers being arrested, and 1, David Cohen, being killed in custody. She got someone killed, Bongino's voice hardened. An intelligence officer doing his job protecting his country died because of information Ilhan Omar leaked. Several committee members looked shaken, realizing the human cost. He continued with Leak 3, Saudi negotiations, where a leak to Turkish intelligence embarrassed the U.S. and Saudi governments. Leak 4, Syria operations, where leaked troop movements led to an ambush killing 2 U.S. soldiers. Leak 5, Iran sanctions, allowing companies to avoid frozen assets. And Leak 6, Pakistan operation, where high-value Taliban targets escaped. Bongino closed that section, stating, 6 major leaks, 6 times classified information appeared in foreign media within days of her receiving it. Each one caused substantial damage, operations compromised, diplomatic initiatives destroyed, intelligence officers killed, U.S. soldiers killed, terrorists escaping justice. Representative Raja Krishnamurthy asked if they were certain the leaks came from her. Bongino was ready. First, she is on recordings discussing the leaks. Second, the information matches the briefings. Third, the timing is perfect. Fourth, she is the only common denominator across all 6 leaks. And fifth, she is receiving payments from foreign governments that correlate with the leaks. This segued into the money. Bongino opened a new section to discuss the financial motivation alongside the ideology. He presented records for Horn of Africa Consulting Group, a company operated by Omar's brother, Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi. It is a shell company with no office or employees, yet it has received $680,000 in wire transfers from sources in Qatar, Turkey, and the UAE over the past 2 years, he revealed. He showed the pattern. July 2024, Omar meets Al Mansour in Qatar, and 3 days later, a $50,000 transfer arrives. September 2024, she meets Turkish intelligence, followed by a $75,000 transfer. October 2024, another meeting, another payment. In total, 10 meetings with foreign intelligence contacts, followed by 10 payments totaling $680,000, Bongino stated. He showed that Ahmed then transferred $180,000 to personal accounts shared with his sister. Representative Brian Fitzpatrick noted this was classic tradecraft for paying an intelligence asset. Exactly, Bongino confirmed. And the amount is significant. She has made more from foreign intelligence services than from U.S. taxpayers. Bongino then displayed travel records, showing that as a member of Congress, Omar was required to report foreign contacts and travel funded by foreign entities. He showed a stack of disclosure forms where she reported routine meetings but failed to report multiple significant meetings with intelligence operatives. Photos appeared on screen. Omar entering the Qatar Foundation headquarters, Omar at a Turkish government facility with intelligence officers, Omar in a private meeting with Emirati intelligence officers. 8 foreign trips, 8 undisclosed intelligence meetings, Bongino listed. These are not accidental oversights. These are deliberate concealments of contacts with foreign intelligence services because she knew it would raise red flags. He pulled out his final document, the classified damage assessment from the CIA, which stated Representative Ilhan Omar's unauthorized disclosures of classified information have caused grave damage to the national security of the United States. Bongino read the details of operations compromised and lives lost, noting that grave damage is the second highest classification. He concluded, that is what Representative Ilhan Omar has done, not through carelessness, but deliberately, systematically, for ideology and for money. She has operated as a foreign intelligence asset while serving in the United States Congress. The room was silent. The evidence was overwhelming. The hearing had lasted 4 hours. and Ilhan Omar sat at the witness table, looking like she had aged a decade. The confident congresswoman was gone, replaced by someone who realized her entire life was about to be destroyed. Chairman Turner looked at her with a mix of anger and pity, saying, "Congresswoman, you've heard 4 hours of evidence. What do you have to say?" When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "This is a setup. This is political persecution of a Muslim woman who dares to criticize U.S. foreign policy." Turner interrupted sharply. "We just heard your voice, admitting you are here to do damage from inside. Those are your words. How is that persecution?" Omar's hands shook, and she claimed the recordings were taken out of context. Bongino cut in, "What context makes it acceptable to say you are not here to serve America?" Representative Himes, looking pained, said, "Congresswoman, I've defended you many times, but these are your own words, your own actions. Please explain to us what we're missing, because right now, this looks like espionage." Omar opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Finally, she whispered, "I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination." The room erupted. Taking the Fifth was devastating. Bongino leaned forward and asked specific questions. "Did you share classified information about Operation Sandstorm? Did you leak details that resulted in the death of David Cohen? Did you receive payments totaling $680,000? Did you say this is jihad by other means?" To each question, Omar whispered, "Fifth Amendment." Bongino sat back and stated, "Let the record show that Representative Omar has invoked the Fifth Amendment on all questions regarding her contact with foreign intelligence, her handling of classified information, and her receipt of foreign payments." Chairman Turner looked grim and announced a vote on a resolution stating there was probable cause that Representative Omar had violated the Espionage Act, that the matter be referred to the DOJ for prosecution, that her clearance be revoked, and that expulsion be considered. The vote was unanimous, 13-0. As the committee members filed out, Bongino walked to where Omar sat in shock and said quietly, "When you walk out of this room, FBI agents will be waiting to arrest you. You're being charged with multiple counts of espionage. Based on the evidence, you're going to spend the rest of your life in federal prison." Omar looked up, eyes wet, and said, "You destroyed my life." "No," Bongino replied. "You destroyed your own life when you decided to betray your country. I just proved it." 10 minutes later, as Ilhan Omar exited the skiff, 4 FBI agents were waiting. "Ilhan Omar, you are under arrest for violations of Title 18 U.S. Code, Section 794, they announced. The handcuffs were applied, Miranda rights were read, and the third-term Congresswoman was walked out of the Capitol in custody. Within an hour, the news leaked. Representative Ilhan Omar arrested on espionage charges. By evening, it was the only story in America. Her office released a statement calling it persecution. But as members of Congress were briefed on the damning evidence, they went public, supporting the investigation. Even the squad remained silent, waiting for evidence. The trial began 6 months later in April 2026. The prosecution presented the FISA warrant, the recordings, the financial records, and the testimony regarding the human cost of her betrayal. Her defense argued context and persecution, but could not explain the money or the leaks. The jury deliberated for 2 days and returned a unanimous verdict: guilty on all counts, 23 counts of espionage, unauthorized disclosure, and acting as an unregistered foreign agent. The judge sentenced her to life without parole, stating she had betrayed her oath, her constituents, and her country, causing the deaths of intelligence officers and soldiers. Ilhan Omar was sent to ADX Florence in Colorado, the supermax prison housing the most dangerous criminals. She spends 23 hours a day alone in a 7 by 1 2-foot cell. The House voted 394 to 12 to expel her, and Congress passed the Intelligence Committee Security Act, requiring polygraph tests for members. In Minnesota, a special election elected a Somali American who ran on restoring trust, declaring Omar an exception to the loyalty of their community. Dan Bongino was praised for his professional handling of the case and was eventually promoted to FBI director. In his first address, he cited the Omar case as the reason the Bureau exists, to protect national security and find spies, regardless of their identity. 5 years later, Omar remains in prison. Her petitions for release are denied, as she shows no remorse. The lesson resonated across Washington. While the First Amendment protects criticism and protest, it does not protect the leaking of classified information or working for hostile intelligence services. Ilhan Omar thought she was untouchable, but the FBI proved otherwise. She is spending the rest of her life in prison not because of who she is, but because of what she did. She betrayed her country, and justice demanded she pay the price.